before last season began, Baker Mayfield was the NFL star of all the commercials. And we always said, take him. Absolutely. Have a chance. As my good friend Mike Golic Jr. once said, when you have a chance to stunt, you stunt.
And by the way, they were hilarious.
They were good. We talked about the
very good
beep one, which we've all been, the hellscape we've all been through trying to find the beep in our house. And obviously there were high expectations for the Browns, and Baker rode that to make a lot of money, as he should. And then it all sort of fell apart. Not saying it was Baker Mayfield's fault completely, but the Browns failed to live up to expectations. There's no question about it. Well, we've said on this show many times, this is a very important year for Baker Mayfield, even though it's year 3. Why? Because he's already had 2 different head coaches and a general manager change. In other words, all the people that were all in on Baker Mayfield being the number 1 draft pick just 2 years ago don't work there anymore. So for him to continue his status and go forward as the Browns starting quarterback, he's going to have to prove it to a whole different bunch of people.
Now, Andrew Berry was there in
a different capacity. He was there, yes. But he wasn't, as President Bush once said, the decider.
Yeah, it is a different landscape for them there now. But they've also, and we heard some from Baker Mayfield, he's gotten to get to some workouts. I think he hosted some guys down in Texas, some of the new ones like Austin Hooper, to come get to those workouts. Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. are both recovering from various ailments. So
a couple of surgeries.
Yeah.
So basically, Baker's been laying low.
There was always something about Baker. It was always, a little bit different, spoke his mind. It was like that quarterback back in the day, that kind of cocky arrogance type of a, swagger that he had. That, it kind of has me torn, because as a, me, as I am kind of old school in that resolve of, just give the quotes out of the locker room. Don't set yourself up. Don't start writing checks that you got to cash, that obviously he had trouble cashing and the team had trouble cashing. So, and I've always said it takes a while to kind of learn the road to be a professional athlete as well. And this sounds like Baker now learning, and maybe it took this situation to help him learn, where less is more. Don't say as much, don't be so bold with your comments. But there is part of me, so I am kind of happy at this, where they say, let your play do your talking. But there is a part of me that's like, I kind of like the old Baker as well.
He's a content fountain.
But it's always one of those things, too. I always say, I want every guy to be exactly who he is and who he needs to be to do well. And I understand things didn't go well for Baker Mayfield, but this is, again, where we take all success and lump everything that went into it as part of that success, or all failure and say everything that led to it was all failure. Freddie Kitchens had some difficulties as a head coach. That Browns team brought a lot of new parts together at once last year. There were all these different things that created the situation that was the 2019 Cleveland Browns. Not all of it was Baker Mayfield's personality and the checks that he wrote that team couldn't cash. And so there is part of me that says, what Baker Mayfield has done and who he is, right, wrong, or indifferent, has been a part of getting him where he needs to be ready to play. And you don't want to certainly cut off any of that.
No, look, I said this off the top. It wasn't all Baker Mayfield in any way, shape, or form. But I am curious when he said, I'm doing it a little quieter. That's how I used to do it before I got on the bigger stage. I don't remember Baker ever being quiet.
Well, he was quiet, but I mean, listen, he had time in college before the year in Oklahoma.
Before a couple years.
Before a couple, where he was. And then obviously it was boisterous in college.
I mean, he wore the shirts,
There was a time before all that. Maybe that's what he's alluding to.
It has to be, right?
And here's the other thing as well. Mike, I get everything you said. There's a lot more. But we know how it all works. Yeah. Where does it all funnel to? It all funnels back to Baker. It could be Freddie Kitchens, but the failure falls to Baker. Unfairly, we always say they get too much credit, quarterbacks at times, and too many darts thrown at them at times. Yeah. And I guess for him, it's a situation where, okay, maybe it is better that I don't throw any more gas on the fire. I think it's a mature thing that he's going through there on how he has to lead an entire team.
I would rather see the maturity in the other areas that we talked about that were more important, meaning making comments about teammates' contract situations. Some of those things going up to Hugh Jackson after he went over to Cincinnati and became a coach there. Like, those are the areas where I go, that's maturity in the ways that I would care to see, in the ways of being a professional, especially around that league that people value.
I think we saw that part of it play out last year, down the stretch of the season when it did spiral, when the Browns season basically spiraled out of playoff contention. I thought we saw more of that from Baker in the way he reacted to things. You know, he had the game in Denver where he had 3 different shaves. You know, and he showed up with the full beard and the stash, and then it was just the kung fu thing at halftime, and then he shaved everything off. I mean, I think we got to that part of Baker. So I think at this point, Baker needs to realize, what else do I need? Because it's one thing to be, as you kind of said, a swashbuckling quarterback that's out there. It's another thing to be a CEO. And basically that's what the quarterback is in the NFL. You're the CEO of the franchise.
I think he can fix all that by fixing his post-game outfits, but that might be a story for another day in this one. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned some of the things that we got out of Baker, because when he was going, he was humming. Like, you guys remember those pictures of him in front of that Bentley with the tiger and the underwear and all that stuff?
Before he'd started a game.
Yeah.
Before he'd ever started a game. I consider it one of the more iconic sports, non-sports photos of the last decade.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.